Is MCOC becoming more complex? Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Another topic video, Rich? Yes, another topic video. What am I doing? Well, I'm out and about at the moment, so I'm pre-recording some topic-based content, especially because I'm doing Necropolis, and that's unfortunately taking up a lot of my life. But I'm also away. I'm hunting ghosts as well, and that's no joke. I'm literally out hunting ghosts, doing some things. There may be a vlog. We'll have to see. But I wanted to go over a topic that was really interesting on Reddit, and I thought this was really cool, so we'll go over it and also have a look what the player base is saying on matters, because that's the biggest thing. Players play this game, so of course thoughts and feelings, people against and people pro, you know. So a lot of business on Reddit. I'll put a link to this in the description if you want to get involved with this. But this really cool thread up about, you know, the complexity of the game. So the title is today's topic of discussion. We have a lot of champions, we have a lot of nodes, both champs and nodes are increasing in length. We have new buffs, new passives, new abilities with each new champ that can do a new thing in new conditions. The old stuff doesn't appear. Game updates are cumulative. The old abilities and interactions don't disappear, though sometimes they too change. Instead, they pile on. At what point does it become too much? In a few years there are thousands of champions and 10 times as many abilities. Will immunity charts become too large to fill? That's shout out to MCC Avenger, who does some great work on that on screen. The driving force of the question, will the game involve too many niche interactions and mechanics that many, if not most, of the players you know, can access? Are we at a point? If not, we are on the precipice. It's a game that constantly evolves, which is not necessarily a good thing and not necessarily a bad thing. When you're absolutely new to this game, as I was back in 2014, December 2014, or that early January 2015 mark, when you looked at the game, it seemed to resemble a very much fighting game with the likes of there was Justice, no, it was Injustice, Gods Among Us, and also you had games I grew up with, Street Fighter, Virtual Fighter, a lot of the fighting based games. I remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s playing in arcades and absolutely loving that particular experience. One of the biggest things when I went abroad on holidays or go to Spain is like, where's the nearest arcade machines? And a lot of the time they would have a lot of fighting games. So looking at games like this is definitely being one of those. But of course, it's not as simple as going joystick left, right, 3-button press. Things have changed. That's not exactly the best description of MCOC because it's not exactly like that. Yes, you swipe left, you swipe right, you tap on the screen for certain things, and there's other elements to it. But of course, that has expanded from what was 2015. Now we're in the 2024 range, and look, games unfortunately need to evolve. Like Mortal Kombat 5 on screen right now, like Mortal Kombat 5 is very much a case of like, well, we've got Mortal Kombat 1, the kind of the not reimagining, but the kind of the rebooty type thing. Yeah, things change, don't they? And unfortunately with development, it's a case most games developers, if they've got something like this, they either just go like, okay, just add more things, more stuff, more modes, more kind of like gearing or stat changing based type elements to that particular game, like more mechanics for your characters. The problem that Kabam has is that they don't do sequels. This is one game, so the same game is kind of like you either add skins or you add more types of storages, which of course a lot of games have kind of like, especially mobile games, are kind of the worst for. It's like saying, you know, you've got more, as I said, Mortal Kombat like 1 through like 11, whatever it is, before they go back to Mortal Kombat 1. It's very different to the likes of like FIFA or what is EA Sports FC 24, where it's like, okay, I've got Haaland, yeah, but have you got Team of the Year Haaland? And that reference might not actually fly to be correct, but I think that people that understand how those games work kind of get where I'm trying to, like, you know, pinpoint a opinion on the matter. But in any case, I digress. I've talked too much. Let's find out what you, the players, say about the aspect of the complexity of the game. So we'll start off with Indication Hopeful 396 for me, with all the new champions, it's harder to remember immunities. Exorcism with the current BG meta. I can't sit in front of a computer with an immunity chart while playing. Too many niche mechanics for the average player. I have a large account and it's getting quite cumbersome. And I think that's a good point because new players are very important to Marvel Contest of Champions. But if Kabam are kind of focusing more to kind of get more from the veteran, or kind of like, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years playing this game, to then kind of like keep them occupied with stuff, then it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you alienate the new players to the game. I agree with this. The most annoying part is when champions have immunities that aren't intuitive. Like Photon is bleed immune, Scorpion being shock immune. I understand a robot being bleed immune or a torch being incinerate immune, but some champs are like armor break or power burn immune. Like, how can I remember every immunity for like 150 champions? And as more champions release that have random immunities, the more annoying it becomes. Whether or not they put something in future that's kind of like, as soon as you get into each fight, like kind of a warning before you get into each fight, like, okay, well, you've got something to the right hand side. And it does have like here, like abilities, go like for a Mega Sentinel, for example. Like, imagine if all this stuff was kind of more quick to grab, so to speak, when you go into fights. But I guess that's the thing, like, you might have to read. There's a lot of reading. I think maybe that's the point to get to, rather than going, okay, let's try and sort this out, what they're trying to say. It's just a case of, it just might be just, you know, quite cumbersome, annoying. But anyways, and finding immunities, you have to go deep into and read the champion's descriptions. It should be a separate area or a tag. And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Trying to find something. I've been playing for a few years and I still find myself in BG saying, damn it, I forgot they were immune to that. Can't tell you how many times I've lost like that. That'll come a point for me, you know, I'm not getting any younger. A lot of you, well, no, most of you aren't getting, nobody in this community is getting any younger. So trying to remember a lot of things, especially as one enters one's glory years, so to speak, then it does become a little bit, you know, become an issue. I'd love icons built into the portrait somehow, maybe a row below the portrait with applicable immunities lit up. It's tricky to do tags or icons though with the champs that have situational immunity. Scorpion depending on which pre-fight you choose, Absorbman depending on which mode you're in, but still I would take it over nothing. Maybe icons can be lit but duller to indicate it's a situational immunity and not 100%. And that's the thing, isn't it? As I said, you know, shout out to MCOC Avenger who does those amazing charts, but how big is that going to be? It's already really big and he does amazing amount of work, but it's like, yeah, it's not good. Where they crossed a line in a big way, in my opinion, is giving immunities against some fundamental interactions that goes against class advantage. Exclusions are there, like Magneto having advantage against metal champions, even if they're tech champions, because there's literally Magneto core ability. But something like so many cosmic champions being immune to power drain, power steal, power burn, or the most common dot debuff, or for skill champs like bleed working against skill champs, inflict Elsa, when they don't necessarily have to have that sort of immunity interactions, is where they started crossing a line a bit too far, and it's been essays for ability descriptions ever since. And that's the problem, isn't it? How much data can you put in, even like from a tags perspective? You know, we'll just dig up some tags right here. This is maybe a bad example of going like, okay, well, this is the tags for the champion, for Dr. Doom, for example. But you could be like, now because we've got combat style, attributes, and alliance quest for this particular champion, I'm pretty certain that there's going to come a point where we'll have too many tags. I think if you go to that fight kind of little thing. I mean, I'm in Necropolis at the moment, so a good example would probably be as soon as I get close to this fight here against, because I've taken a break, like in that bit where it's got like below level, like we've got so many different hashtags. I'm pretty certain I've seen, there we go, there's a good example. So Wiccan's a more newer champion, well, so is Shuri, but Wiccan's a good example. See all those hashtags that are there, and that can become quite, you know, that's going to become even larger. So trying to kind of like get all that stuff in as it expands, the game expands, is going to become a very, very cumbersome type thing. But immunity seems to be a big element to what players are, frustrated about, or kind of looking at. The interaction and kind of knowledge seems to be key. In any case, moving on from the immunity section, it's really interesting to note when there's someone saying, I'm a casual player slowly working my way through Cavalier. I find myself constantly looking up different interactions and nodes. It almost feels like cheating, but I can't just read then understand how it works. I always feel like personally it's you've got to sink yourself into the mode or stuff to kind of like understand what's right, what's wrong, how the AI moves, and the AI moves differently around certain nodes. I mean, look, you can, if you go into Necropolis, it's a very good example of how I think Kabam need to do a better job at testing champions against nodes, because champion behavior, AI behavior for specific champions around their own ability set, about what Kabam set in to the nodes for something like Necropolis, means the behavior is different. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm sure Kabam like that, but I don't think it's particularly fair to the community when you've got a champion behaving differently than normally would. And I'm not talking just about going, okay, well, you've got a miss mechanic on top of like a Tigra or something, which is in Necropolis. Or what happens with the likes of Airwalker. Airwalker in Necropolis, its behavior is different, but it's worse when the AI isn't exactly complementary of that. Right here, Sender says, I've been thinking about this. The game is becoming too complex. I could think of the solution for Kabam to reduce only one new champ per month and better deal with the AI and bugs. But at the end of the day, it's their business to make money from new champs. It's not likely to happen. Interesting point as well from Natish, who says, I think the main issue here is the new player base. It's going to be really hard to get it down if you're just jumping in, and that could hurt the longevity of the game. Absolutely. Right, this is the biggest problem, as I said, Kabam have. The difference between making the game interesting and complex for veteran players, but also that balance with having that new player integration, that they don't feel too kind of overwhelmed. You've got content creators trying to cover as much fresh stuff and relevant things, but at the same time, new players coming into this game may feel lost and also scared with the extent of what they have to take on very early on. But of course, you know, whatever you like about MCOC is going to be very important. As acceptable, Anthill says, complex, yes. Too complex, that depends on you, your intelligence, and how ambitious you are. I think it's a little bit of a kind of a slight dig there. I'm a lazy player though. I only play modes I enjoy. There's tons of content that I skip each month, still manage to be Paragon, in no rush to be Valiant. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's just down to like what you're personally interested in the game. I mean, I'm at a madman kind of like stage where I'm just like, look, I'm free to play, you know, non-spending now for over 2 years, and I'm like, I want to be Valiant, and it's important I be Valiant, especially because, you know, it's the progression title, and it's, you know, it's just important to what I need to do at the moment. Did I need to rush it, or do I need to rush this at this given time? Probably not, but at the same time, I think it's, as I said, it's important. This particular thread has been really interesting to read. There's lots of opinions and stuff that I couldn't fit into this video because otherwise it would just be it'd be too long. But I think there's some great stuff there. There's definitely, I think, an interest from veteran players to have a level of complexity. You get a lot of these new champions, you want to test out the interactions, but at the same time, you've got to be very careful when you're a developer of like, okay, do we have too much level of complexity here? I mean, kind of yes, kind of no. You've got relic stat focus that have recently been added in the last 12 months, which does add that extra level of complexity to the game, which is important to master as much as possible and just kind of look to eke out some extra damage for your champion's potential. But at the same time, you have to look at it from a new player perspective. If I was a new player coming into the game and starting off very early on, I definitely would feel a little bit overwhelmed with going from that early level of challenger and try to at least push to the likes of uncollected to feel like I'm making somewhat gains. But of course, the main thing comes back to, if you enjoy video games on the level that you personally want, then that's not a problem. But it's definitely something I feel Kabam need to look into when trying to get new players to experience this game. And do bear in mind, we do need new players coming into it. As veteran players that may spend in the game or be free to play leave for whatever reason, then of course we need to replace the number. It's always great to know that when people are coming back to the game after a certain amount of year hiatus, but at the same time we need to make it as easy as possible for them to get back into it. And of course that's something that Kabam needs to wrestle with, that particular knowledge. But in any case, what are your thoughts on this particular matter? Put it in the comment section down below and get involved with that thread. Really interesting stuff. So shout out to Lord Business for putting it together. It's always really interesting to read these things. Check out some other content located on screen. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you all soon.